When Joe Biden left the White House in January 2025, he didn't go off to some giant palace or luxury compound like many people might imagine. Instead, he went right back to a house in Delaware. And not just any house, a 3-bedroom home. Yes, just 3 bedrooms. Now, the house itself is about 6,850 square feet, which is definitely big compared to an average home. But when you start comparing it to what other presidents have owned, it suddenly doesn't feel that impressive. Because here's the thing. Many U.S. presidents have owned absolutely massive properties. We're talking about giant estates with dozens of rooms, thousands of acres of land, private beachfront access, and values so high they're hard to even imagine. Some of those homes are so famous that people still know their names today, even hundreds of years later. Now comes the surprising part. Biden's total real estate, everything he owns combined, is worth around $6.2 million. That includes both of his homes. That's it. Just $6.2 million. And that might sound like a lot of money, and it is, but compared to other presidents, it's actually pretty modest. Some presidents have spent more than that on just one vacation home, and at least one president owns a single property that is worth almost 100 times more than everything Biden owns combined. So naturally, this raises a big question. Is Joe Biden actually one of the most modest presidents when it comes to real estate? The answer might not be what you expect. And that viral photo of a giant mansion that people think is his? That story is even more interesting than most people realize. Let's start with what Biden really owns today. First, there's his home in Greenville, Delaware. It's located near a lake in a quiet and private area. This house has been a big part of his life for years, but the way he got it is what really tells you something about him. Back in 1996, instead of buying a ready-made mansion, Biden decided to do something different. He bought empty land, about 4 acres of it, for $350,000. That's it. Just land. No house, no structure, nothing. Then he built the house himself from scratch. The final result was a 6,850 square foot home with 3 bedrooms and 4.5 bathrooms. And even though that sounds large, the design wasn't meant to show off wealth or power. It was built for comfort, for family, and for everyday living. Over the years, this house became more than just a place to live. When Biden was vice president, the Secret Service needed to stay nearby to protect him. So instead of building something special for them, he rented out a small cottage on his property for $2,200 a month. That way, they could stay close and do their job. And then there's the garage. This is the same garage where Biden keeps his famous 1967 Corvette Stingray. It's something he really loves, but that same garage also became the center of a major political controversy in 2022 when classified documents were discovered there. Suddenly, a normal family home became a huge national news story. But the most emotional story connected to this house is about his son, Beau. When Beau Biden was battling brain cancer, the medical bills started getting very high. Biden, who had spent decades in public service and was never extremely wealthy, actually considered taking out a second mortgage on his home just to pay for his son's treatment. Think about that for a moment. A former vice president thinking about borrowing against his own house to afford medical care. When he told President Barack Obama about this, Obama immediately stepped in and told him not to do it. He even offered to personally lend Biden the money. That moment really shows 2 things. First, how strong their friendship was, and second, that Biden wasn't sitting on huge amounts of money at the time. Today, that Greenville house is estimated to be worth around $1.7 million. It's a solid value, especially considering it started as empty land. But compared to the massive estates owned by other presidents, it's still pretty modest. Now let's talk about the second property, the beach house. In 2017, after leaving the vice presidency, Biden and his wife Jill finally decided to do something they had dreamed about for years. They bought a home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, for $2.7 million. This wasn't some huge luxury compound. It wasn't a giant estate with endless land. Instead, it was a 4,800 square foot 3-story house with 6 bedrooms. What made it special wasn't the size or the price. It was what it meant to them. Biden had said that for years, he and Jill dreamed of having a place by the beach where their entire family could come together. This house was about that dream finally coming true. The home includes large porches that overlook the ocean, an outdoor kitchen with a built-in barbecue, and even a fireplace for cooler nights. It's clearly designed for relaxing, spending time together, and making memories, not for showing off wealth. Today, that beach house is estimated to be worth about $4.4 million, so when you add everything together, $1.7 million for the Greenville house and $4.4 million for the beach house, you get a total of about $6.1 million. Round it slightly, and you get the commonly reported number of $6.2 million. That's Biden's entire real estate portfolio. Now here's where things get really interesting. During the 2020 election, a photo started going viral online. It showed a massive mansion with columns, gardens, and a very grand design. People shared it widely, claiming that this was Biden's home. Some posts even suggested that he was secretly living in luxury while pretending to be middle-class Joe. But there's one big problem with that claim. Biden hasn't owned that house since 1996. That's almost 30 years ago. So what's the real story behind that mansion? Back in 1974, Biden was a young senator. At that time, he had recently gone through a terrible tragedy. He had lost his first wife and daughter in a car accident. During that difficult time, he bought an old DuPont mansion in Greenville for $185,000. But this wasn't some perfect luxury home. It was actually abandoned and in very bad condition. It was even scheduled to be demolished. Instead of walking away, Biden decided to take it on as a project. He spent the next 21 years living in that house and slowly renovating it. He worked on it piece by piece over time. He even gave it a nickname, the Station. And during his 1988 presidential campaign, he used the house as his campaign headquarters. The mansion itself was around 10,000 square feet, with 5 bedrooms, formal gardens, and a pool. After years of work and improvements, he eventually sold it in 1996 for $1.2 million. That's more than 6 times what he originally paid. So yes, it was a smart real estate investment. But the key point is simple. He sold it in 1996. He hasn't owned it for decades. Even so, that photo still circulates online today, making people believe he still lives there. The reality is much simpler and much more modest. Now, if you compare Biden's properties to those of other presidents, the difference becomes very clear. Going all the way back to early American history, many presidents were extremely wealthy landowners. George Washington owned Mount Vernon, which included about 8,000 acres of land and a large mansion. In today's market, it would likely be worth at least $50 million. Thomas Jefferson owned Monticello, a 33-room estate on 5,000 acres. Its estimated modern value could exceed $200 million, even though Jefferson himself died in debt. James Madison had an estate that grew to around 22,000 square feet. These were not just homes. They were symbols of wealth and power. In more modern times, things didn't change that much. He didn't grow up rich. His family faced financial struggles, and he lived a middle-class life. He spent 36 years as a senator, earning a steady but not massive income. He raised his family, dealt with personal losses, and focused on public service. Even as vice president, his salary was about $230,000 per year, not enough to build huge wealth. The real money came later, after 2017, when he earned about $17 million from book deals and speaking engagements. But even then, he didn't go out and buy multiple properties or build a large portfolio. He bought one beach house and kept his main home. That's it. No luxury mansions across different states. No giant estates. Just 2 homes in Delaware. And that's what makes his story different. While many presidents used real estate to build wealth or create a legacy, Biden kept things simple. His homes are comfortable, but not extravagant. They're places for family, not for showing off. So the next time you see that viral mansion photo, remember, it's from a house he sold nearly 30 years ago. What he owns today is much simpler.